Good morning and welcome to the fourth edition of Grapes and Greens. And I'm delighted to be at Worplesdon Golf Club today. One of the three W's, that's West Hill, Woking, and of course Worplesdon. And I'm joined by Julian Sansom, who is the Assistant Secretary here at the club. Julian, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Delighted. We met probably just after I started at Wine and Earth, and straight away we kind of hit it off because of your love of wine and your knowledge of golf, and literally been into, you're a cross-section of cross-management and coming through the ranks as well, which is great. So I wanted to have some younger blood right from the off, which is perfect, and your love of wine. So we're going to start with wine. You have chosen a Pinot Noir.
Yes, yeah. Always been a kind of a big Pinot Noir fan. Always my go-to.
Okay.
I think we spoke about it before. It's just always a kind of a safe bet for me, I think. And I always like to try different regions. I don't always go Burgundy, France. I like to try different kind of places, old world, new world. And, we've got a great offering here at the club at Worplesdon from New Zealand, Otago. It's really a great wine, a wine that our members love.
Yeah,
we're very fortunate to have it. It's
funny because I'm finding that a lot of people are asking for Pinot Noir. They're going to bring it. Mike Harris, our first edition, when he goes to the R&A, he chooses kind of the same area, New Zealand, and the Pinot Noir. So I wasn't surprised, which is good. I'm going to go this time with a South African wine, and it's a Pinotage. Now, Pinotage is really only ever found in South Africa. But it's also can be found here in the UK. But outside of that, it's not really seen at all. And it's a combination of Pinot Noir grape and the Cinsault grape. And generally, Pinotage from South Africa is pretty heavy. If you like a heavy wine, then, Pinotage is on your list. But it wasn't everybody's favourite, and that's why you don't see a lot of it being sold. We have got this fantastic producer called Ali Bleu. Their vineyard is in Franschhoek, just outside of Stellenbosch. Beautiful. I've been lucky enough to go to Franschhoek, and I know the vineyard, and I know that you can stay there, and it's just like amazing. The story behind it is that it's owned by a German billionaire who has got one of the biggest furniture companies in the world. He made his fortune after the war, where obviously English had completely decimated Germany. And obviously they're trying to rebuild. And the only people who were making furniture were English companies. Very difficult to get an Englishman to sell to a German after you just bombed their whole village. So they employed this guy, and he did so well that he bought the company, and he just grew and grew and grew. And then he's bought Ali Bleu, and the wines are amazing. So today we've got a Pinotage, but they do a really nice Chardonnay. They do a really nice Chenin Blanc, and they do a really nice Syrah as well. And the great story about them is that they're very popular with golf clubs in South Africa. And again, from our environmental and sustainability point of view, for every golf club that take their wine, they have an owl house put on the golf course.
Very interesting.
Which is quite cool because they have, and this particular Pinotage is called Blue Owl, and they have the owls down by the river, and that's where the story came from. So I thought I would bring this one along today.
Great. I think it's great for us as well. Obviously, we've got a very heavy South African contingent in our membership who would love the wine, but also we're in a big push towards sustainability as well. So correct. I think really you bringing the bottle today really symbolises what we're doing as a club as well and who we are as a club. So it's fantastic.
It was funny because we brought it up in October and there was a South African member and he enjoyed it and he went straight in to see Chris Lomas and it was like, Chris, got to put that on the list. So I was like, cool, we'll do that. It's fantastic.
See, as soon as you get one, you get loads. It's just word spreads.
Exactly, yeah. So, and actually this is great value for money. If you go onto our website, it's only $12.25, which for the quality of wine is amazing. Yes. It's really good. Yeah. But Worplesdon, and we're sat here with a Walker Cup jacket, and this is David Frame, 1961, and he played at that Seattle Golf Club that they played at.
Yeah.
and I believe his daughter is this year's lady captain. Is that right?
Yeah, she's about to finish her year. She's been in since kind of May last year AGM, and she'll finish when AGM now sits in May. But been great. We kind of redeveloped this room that we're sat in. It's been a great success as far as board meetings, but then it's become almost more intimate for fine dining as well for us, which again...
I think you've got a party in here tonight. Yeah.
We do have a little party here kind of tonight. We got one in the dining room tonight as well. Just a really great addition, and just really honoured David and kind of the golfer he was, and some of the achievements he had whilst representing Worplesdon.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's really nice to really do that, and in kind of Kate's year as well, his daughter.
I love coming to Worplesdon because it just feels historic. It's got so many little pieces of memorabilia around the clubhouse. It's also got one of the, when I come around the corner, and you've got the pro shop on the left-hand side, and then you just look down the first, and it's just so inviting to go and play.
It is. I think we're lucky. I think we balanced the tradition with, becoming more modern quite well here. Mm-hmm. I think especially with, you have a preconception of Surrey clubs, traditional Surrey clubs, and what they're going to be like. I think we kind of break that mold a little bit. We do keep the tradition, but also we're definitely growing the game. Age demographics going the right way as well. And I think we're very forward focused, with also keeping the tradition, which is great. And to your point, the first tee is phenomenal. Walking in every day through the front door, getting to see that, it's pretty special.
Yeah,
you don't get bored of it, put it that way.
So one of the things I first picked up on was amazing growth in your career. So tell me about Llanwern and how you got involved in that golf club and became the GM and everything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. My whole career journey is fairly interesting, how I kind of fall into roles. But Llanwern, very dear to my heart. My grandfather's been a member there for, I think it'll be 54 years this year. Wow. I was introduced to golf at Llanwern. I've been a member since the age of 8.
I'm glad you pronounce it properly.
I know. I'm Welsh. I've got to do that slang a bit. So yeah, just loved the club. Grew up there. Kind of went away and played for other clubs when I was, playing my best golf as an amateur. But always found myself back at Llanwern, and they realised quite early on with the chairman they had that they needed to change their business model, get away from volunteers running the club and really move to a management structure. And they had that foresight kind of early 2010, 2012, and it took a few years to get there. And they did get there, but the issue they had, they couldn't afford to have a full-time manager. They just couldn't afford that role. So they introduced this trainee manager role. It was strange in a way because it's trainee, not because they were going to train that person. It was more because of the financial reasons. Mm-hmm. And just growing up in golf, looking at PGA and going on that route, they knew I was a very, viable candidate. So they asked me to interview. I interviewed and obviously got the job and spent probably a year in that trainee manager role. And it was very much a baptism by fire because I didn't know what I was doing, really. Knew the club, knew the members, knew golf, but didn't really know how to run a business. So, kind of fell into the role, loved it, loved everything about it. Best decision I think I've ever made. And, I spent a very, I'm going to say happy as it was. I spent a happy close to 8 years there, really. Moved up to GM after the first year and kind of stayed there, navigated a lot of different kind of scenarios, clubhouse redevelopment. We did a in-depth 5-year strategy plan for the club. COVID was, a really hard time just generally, not just, working, but in life. So to kind of navigate that in my, close to 8 years was very powerful. I think I learned a lot as a person, but also as a manager. So. And also,
how old were you when you took on that role?
I would have been 23.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty 23, young 24. Young at the time. Yeah. I think you see more managers now coming through at that age, but at the time, yes. Yeah, very young to be. And
so you thought about playing the game professionally. Obviously, you got your PGA qualifications.
Yes, so I played amateur career, played for Wales, very fortunate to play for Wales, probably wasn't really good enough to play for Wales. Mm-hmm. I just had a very, very consistent year the year I played, and PGA was the way I wanted to go because in my mind at that time I wanted to run my own shop, I wanted to teach, I wanted to do all those things that, come with the PGA, but really it was difficult in South Wales, being a PGA pro in South Wales it's kind of quiet, winters are quite bad, being someone's assistant, sometimes there weren't enough hours to give to an assistant for them to come to the shop. And, I toiled with it. I had offers to go up to Manchester to a big kind of club there, but at 18, I wasn't ready to leave home yet. And, I just kind of fell into, working in the pro shops locally and just seeing where it went. So really when Llanwern came up, I kind of jumped at the chance because it was still being involved in golf, but it was something more than, being in that pro shop, teaching lessons, potentially selling Mars bars and doing, that side of it. So, really jumped at being a training manager and going a different route maybe in the golf industry.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the club because I opened up Celtic Manor. So, used to see all the steelworks and then look down and you kind of go like, wow, that's different. Yeah.
It was interesting for us to have, the Celtic Manor we're in the Celtic Manor shadow, don't get me wrong, but to have a club of that size that hosts the Ryder Cup and, everything we were the complete opposite, if that makes sense. Yeah. And, a lot of people would ask, are you a competitor? And in no way, shape or form were we a competitor. Yeah. And if anything, we worked very well with the guys there at the Celtic Manor. They would always, send business to us. We'd do likewise the same. And, we had a very, very nice relationship with the team there.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of golf generally is that, it's a community. And especially as you get into club management, I think that I found in my time as a club manager that, especially if you're a young person, the doors are always open. People love to see people coming through. Obviously, the way that people taught in my day was very different to what it is today. But I think there was a camaraderie and an understanding. I remember when I got to Wentworth, I took over from group captain Robbie James, which was a bit different as a 25-year-old going into Wentworth from a PGA officials background. And, the magnitude of that, and then going to, they had also overseeing golf was the old secretary when went way back, which was Richard Doyle Davidson. Okay. And he introduced me to the Golf Club Secretaries Association back in the day. And I think I was probably 30 or 35 years the junior to anybody else. Yeah. And it was basically have a gin and tonic, let's go and play golf, that type of thing. Yeah. And I really wanted to learn and get better. I mean, I was raw. The beauty of Wentworth for me was I was thrown in at the deep end. We had Willie Bow, who was a legend in the hotel and hospitality side. And he just basically battered me into submission. But he taught me all the right things, which was great. But I'm not sure. I don't think he'd be in a job. He probably, definitely bullying. It would definitely come to mind. But it was one of those things back in the day you just kind of accepted.
Yeah, got on with. Yeah.
And this is really why I was so pleased that you've come on the podcast because it's all about young people and having opportunities. And so, how did you get the opportunity? Because it's a massive jump to go from Llanwern, I can't say it properly, to Country Club of Virginia, which is an amazing place. It's so much bigger and so much just on a different scale as the food and beverage manager.
Yeah, again, it's kind of an interesting story. I said my journey was interesting. When I first started at Llanwern, I knew that being a trainee manager and not really having someone to train me, I needed to find a third party that could really give me education, knowledge, anything I could kind of hold on to help me at Llanwern, but also help myself in the industry. So I, funny enough, through a friend who was actually a club manager in Prestbury now, Stuart Finley, he was working for Wales Golf at the time, and he had kind of come in and recommended, you should really look at education. And that's where I come across CMAE, Club Managers Association of Europe, and kind of looked into it a little bit, saw the education platform they had, and really jumped onto that. And through working through CMAE, I got to know a dear friend to me now, Jason Koningsfeld, who works for the Club Management Association of America. He's the chief learning officer. He's kind of in charge of all the education. And we didn't know each other. First kind of point of contact with him, I just off the cuff sent an email to his email address that I'd found online and said, look, I'm fascinated by the US. I'm fascinated by working in US clubs and what we could learn from US clubs. What are the chances of a young British manager coming to the US, whether it be an internship or anything like that, just to learn? And surprisingly, I didn't think I'd get a reply. But Within 2 seconds, he kind of replied and said, I like your forwardness, but I think you need to focus on your education. There might be, possibly in the future, but I can't promise anything. Just focus on your education for now. So, fast forward 3-4 years, I was sitting my MDP3, which is, fairly up the ladder on the pathway for Club Management Association of Europe. Yeah. He was there. It was the first one in Scandinavia. It was in Stockholm. And he'd come over from the US just to kind of see how the course worked in Scandinavia. And we had conversations during the week. We got on fairly well, but I think it was the last night, again, we'd had some wine and we were generally chatting as we do. And I kind of said, look, you gave me that great advice. I took that advice. I'm pretty much at the end of my journey now. What are the opportunities now for me to come over and learn and work in the US? And he was very obviously fortunate to have a great, I think, mentor to him, but also a great person in the industry in Phil Keister, who is the GM of the Country Club of Virginia. Very forward-thinking. I'd go as far as saying I've never met a more intelligent, driven person in my entire life. Right, He's phenomenal. I mean, I'm not in awe of people often, but he has become a very close dear friend, but also a mentor to me. And he was the gentleman that he had in mind. And he put me in contact with Phil. And me and Phil went back and forth for probably a year, sharing emails about potentially coming over. And in 2019, we finally got to the stage where the club kind of accepted me. And I think it was at the time a hard sell for Phil because, like you said, it's a huge club, huge undertaking. There's lots going on 24/7. So to have all that happening and then take on this Welsh intern who knows nothing about Welsh clubs, US clubs even, it was a lot for them. But he had the foresight to realize that it would be mutually beneficial for them and for me and kind of made that work. So went there for an internship in 2019, just over a month, loved my time there. And equally, they enjoyed me being there, which kind of was the reason that it set about me going back. I left just before COVID. COVID happened. I think we both would have liked me to have gone back sooner, but with obviously everything in place, I couldn't leave, couldn't fly. So once COVID was over, restrictions lifted, you could fly. We sought about getting that visa, which obviously led me there for close to 2 years as food and beverage manager, which was unbelievable for me, really.
What do they have in food and beverage? I mean, it kind of set the scale of what you were dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, huge. So turnover for the year when I left would have been close to 12 million, just in food and beverage.
12 million?
Just 12 million,
okay,
yeah.
Fine.
I mean, just in food and beverage, nothing else. Staff levels ranged probably up to close to 200, across front and back of house. And then restaurants, you had your fast casual, which is almost our Starbucks meets Panera Bread, in our gym complex. And then all the way up to fine dining restaurant, which not traditional fine dining, white glove, but, very much high-end fine dining. And in between you had, a middle of the kind of road restaurant, which was more family oriented. Then you had another separate clubhouse 7 miles away that did, lunch, did dinner, did banqueting. We had banqueting at our main clubhouse. It was a huge operation, a huge undertaking. Snack bars, pool would open for 4 months of the year. I can't describe the scale, really. It's
How many golf courses?
3 golf courses.
Right.
6
halfway houses?
Yeah, snack bars, halfway houses, 6 swimming pools, 24 tennis courts.
What kind of stuff,
Indoor, outdoor, squash, state-of-the-art gym. Anything you could think of, they've got, or they're trying to add. What they do as a club is phenomenal.
How far is that from Washington? Is it?
DC is about 2 hours away in the car.
2 hours, okay.
Yeah.
And what would be the catchment area for membership?
It's funny. So when I left, there were close to 8,000 members, which, when you think about it, that's a lot. Even with the scale they've got, 8,000 members is huge.
And is that with the families, or is it that 8,000 sort of paying members and then families on top, or was that?
That includes everyone.
Everybody,
that includes everyone. Yes. So it's still a lot. Catchment area would be, there was a lot in the city who'd be members, but then you had a lot of members out of state as well. They had a great legacy program. So if you kind of come through as a junior member, you kind of stay in the club, even if you go off to university and maybe move the other side of the US for for work or for family reasons, you're still members of the club. So very, very good at that.
And how long did it? Well, I mean, you'd been there before, but how long did it take you to feel like I'm comfortable in this role, and I've kind of got a handle on it? Because that is a big role to try and take on from a background that you're coming from.
Yes.
I mean, it's a huge difference.
Definitely. 100% agree. I was lucky. The way, so Ryan Bender, who was my boss there, he was the director of food and beverage, he went about it the right way. He made sure that I worked every line level role.
Okay.
Some back of house, mostly front of house in my time there. So I spent pretty much 6 months working in every outlet in pretty much every position.
Okay.
Just to get a real understanding of the operation, one, but then just to get to know people on the ground. I think it would have been wrong potentially for me to come in straight away above everyone as a manager with very limited F&B experience. So went about the right way. I loved it, and that's partly where we got into wine, working in the restaurants as well, because you get to appreciate it with some of the reps and the members.
Was that really the first time you got into wine? Because I'm guessing that probably a beer man, PGA background, playing with the boys, and then having a beer on a Saturday night kind of thing.
Growing up in South Wales, of course it is. I grew up in a family. My mother doesn't drink, so very limited access to wine. 18 to maybe 20, because we just only had it at Christmas maybe. So I think I started to appreciate a little bit more when I got into clubs. You have dinners, you'd go places, you drink wine. I enjoy it. But I think really going to the US and being in that environment, hospitality, getting to know your members, what they like, what they don't like, and really making suggestions as well. A number of times you'd be in the restaurant and a member would go, I'm having this meal tonight, what would you suggest? And having that knowledge and almost being comfortable to suggest something to them, huge. Then every Wednesday we'd pretty much have a wine tasting, so you get to try wines that I'd probably never try in my entire life unless I was there. Really gave me a better understanding of wine, but really a love for wine. I loved it. I kind of, it's one of the things I miss not being there anymore. It really is.
I mean, how many wines on the list do you think?
Depends on the restaurant. Fine dining, Ollie's was our fine dining restaurant. We had a beautiful wine room, and it was almost a dining space too. So you had 3 tables in there. You can dim the lights, beautiful. But then the back cabinet was all our wines, and there was some great. We had like Opus 1 bottles in there, and they're just, if I'd love to try an Opus 1 if I could. I mean, hundreds and hundreds.
Screaming
of bottles.
Eagle, I guess, would be there as well. Yeah,
it's just phenomenal. And put it this way, doing stock take every month was not good, but you get to appreciate and look at the wines. It was it's just phenomenal place.
And more old world, was it a lot of French and along with Californian and American wines?
There is a lot of old world, don't get me wrong, but obviously being in the US, they do embrace some of the new world, California side, Napa Valley. Members like what they like though. You'd always have, the members and what they go to. It definitely gave me an appreciation for US wine. Because never really tried it here, really. And we were great with the members too. A number of times they come in with a fantastic bottle that they might not finish, and they give it to the staff to try because they knew how much we love wine. So even if we didn't have it on the menu, we'd get to try some of these wines that, again, we wouldn't taste. Really expensive, lovely bottles of wine. So,
and I think that's the beauty of working for a club, because I'm not sure you get that in a hotel.
No.
I think the fact that you've got, and I'm always amazed by, so many people have come into the club world from hospitality, but that's from hotels. And then they suddenly come into the club world and never leave, because you're seeing people, it becomes part of the family, which is really different. And they treat you, certainly in America, I think you're part of their family as well. So they want to make sure that you get the best training so that they get the best service, which kind of makes sense. And so you get open to a lot more things, wine tastings, et cetera, because the more the better service that you can give. Which is fascinating, where it doesn't always happen over here so much.
No, I think it's
the way. I think in the top clubs it does, but I think we have a very different view of hospitality over here in both clubs and in life in general. I think it's just, you're there to serve and that's it.
I agree. I 100% agree. But I think what I saw most over there was you have college-aged, people go into college purely for hospitality. You don't see many people in the UK go to school just for hospitality, whereas they were going to hospitality school because they wanted to work in the best hotels or the best clubs, and that's the career path they saw for themselves. But I don't think here in the UK, you get to 18, 19, you see that in your mind as a career for yourself. You don't. I think that's why potentially the service levels change. You know, they're just completely different. I think you're right, though. The top clubs in the UK are getting definitely, they're good at it, and they're getting better at it.
I think everything that's usually, if it comes from the States, it ends up here. And I think, I'm talking to Golf Kitchen, you know, 7 years ago, couldn't get anywhere. And then after the pandemic, food and beverage is massive, and they just want to know more. And I think there's more and more people in hospitality actually thinking, actually, this is a pretty good life, compared to the hard slog of normal hospitality in pubs and clubs and restaurants and that type of thing as well. How many staff did you have to look after or responsible for, would you say?
It's interesting because I used to bounce around the restaurants. I was almost have ideas and could kind of do an overall with Ryan, but really I'd bounce around the restaurant. So I'd go in as manager for that restaurant for, you know, X amount of time and have, you know, anything from 5 to 30 staff, and then move to the next restaurant, and, you know, really bounce around everywhere to kind of help them as and when needed to obviously gain more knowledge. So very much varied, very different on who you'd be working with too. Obviously fine dining, some of the servers there, a very close friend of mine, Nicole, she'd been there, you know, 4 or 5 years, phenomenal what she did. But then you go down to the pool and you got someone on their first day never served before in their life. So there was an element of I'm learning as much as I can from Nicole, but then also I'm training this new person on the ground in this place. And it was, both ends of this, you know, spectrum, but, you know, really good.
Because management, leadership and training, you know, it's probably, if you talk to any leaders, the hardest thing is managing people. And how do you learn that? And it's really, like you're saying, it's on the job, isn't it, really?
And the club are great at that anyway. The club have always been big advocates of education and training anyway, and they're always trying to improve their training process. And I was, in my time there, kind of a big part of that, and helping Ryan and how we could develop, you know, lower level staff, managers, because you almost want your, you know, line level staff pushing your supervisors pushing managers pushing directors, and really having that, you know, pathway through the business. And we got to a good place with it. You know, we're very big on our SOPs, training our SOPs every day at lineup, and very, very professional in the way they organize themselves, but always looking to improve.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because I grew up admiring Luke Donald, and for the number of times that he was, you know, world number one, he had that get better, 1% better every day, incremental gains. It's Country Club of Virginia exactly the same. Yeah. You know, the motto is an evolution to excellence through, you know, continuous improvement sort of thing, and that's their motto. That's what they live by, and you can see it day to day, and it's very infectious.
I remember I got to know Jim James, who was at Augusta for many years, and he came over and we used to run a summit for managers, and he came over and gave a presentation. One of the things I remember was like, it's never good enough. You know, we can always improve. And one of the stories was literally one year they'd had a lot of rain. Yeah. And as you know, they've got members who look after all certain aspects. And there was one member who was kind of in charge of toilets. Okay. It was mainly on the range and that type of thing. And because it was so muddy and wherever, you know, they did the wrap up afterwards, and he just said, like, you know, we really have to improve our toilets. That's one area that I think was really bad and whatever. So the next year, Jim went away and like, how do we improve toilets? And he, you know, basically said from a locker room perspective, cleaning the toilet, you had like, you know, 25 points from an SOP perspective. Yeah. But what I loved about it, you got all the students, and obviously it's Augusta and it's the Masters or whatever. So you got them 7 days, and on day one, right through to the last day, they had a new uniform every day. So it was like, don't come to me with any excuses. Boom, that's gone. Yeah. 2, I'm going to give you a competition every day who has the cleanest toilets and wherever. So there's a bit of skin in the game. This is what we want to do. This is really clever. So guess what? First time I go to Augusta, what do I go and what? The toilets. They are spotless. They are absolutely spotless. So it's quite, you know, it just shows you, you know, training, understanding, but how do we also improve? And I think that's one of the things that I was lucky enough to go to a lot of great clubs in America. And I think that's what I tried to take back was when I was at St Andrews and when I was at Loch Lomond was like, it's good, but how do we make it better?
Yeah, 100%. The problem I always had though, I'm an impatient person. Not in a bad way. I just want things obviously like done yesterday. I want them done now. I want everything to be perfect now. And I think the biggest thing for me, a manager, is kind of realizing, okay, this is where we are. This is where we want to be. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, there's process, there's habits, there's things you've got to put in place to actually get to that end goal.
Yeah,
it's tough.
No, it is, but that's the right way to do it. And I think being impatient is not a bad thing because you can bring others with you. I mean, it's not always easy because you've got members to deal with, and not in a bad way, but it's their club at the end of the day. Yeah. So, you know, they're responsible for it and how they want to. And this is a very different club to other clubs, you know, and managers have to be aware of that as well. It's how do I fit in, and is it the right club for me? Yeah. So your time came to an end there because of visa, or?
Visa ended. I knew I had, you know, that short amount of time.
So we were there 2 years? Just
shy of 2 years.
Okay.
And I knew that was my time scale. I knew that I wanted to go in, learn as much as I could. I knew I was going to leave. Would have loved to stay if I could. Yeah. You know, this is just such a wonderful place to be. But I knew my time was going to come to an end. I knew I had to come back to the UK. So, just, you know, learned as much as I could in that time. Yeah. Then came back. And obviously this role here at Worplesdon came up.
How did that come around? Because obviously it's not in Wales. It's not. What were you looking? Did you know Chris? Did you know somebody at the club? Or what other offers did you have? I mean, what was?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I knew my time was coming to the end, and I had the foresight for myself that I don't want to leave and have nothing. I don't want to go back to nothing, just because I like to be busy. I like to work. Yeah. I didn't want to come back and kind of find my spot once I got back, and I knew I wasn't going to go back to Wales. As much as I love being close to the family, I knew I need to come closer to London, Surrey area, and these types of clubs. So I was kind of looking, I was seeing what was kind of coming up in the industry. Went to some interviews just to really interview for myself. I hadn't really...
Good idea. Really, that's a really good tip for anybody is go and do as many interviews, even if you don't want the job, just to get the practice.
Well, 100%. Yeah. And that's the mindset I had, because I almost fell into Llanwern, I almost fell into Country Club Virginia, and you're at that point where, I haven't really interviewed in my life. Yeah. When that job I really want comes up, I've got no experience. So started interview, started to kind of see what was going on in the UK industry, because being away for 2 years, I forgot about it, but you don't, it's not at the forefront of your mind. So started to look around, and this role came up, and I hand on heart, honest, and Chris knew that as well. When I came, I wasn't looking to be an assistant. You go from being, GM for close to 8 years to running a huge F&B department. Last thing I wanted was to come back and be an assistant, but I just felt like the UK market didn't really understand the Country Club of Virginia. So I was being almost marked on my time at Llanwern, and Llanwern's a small club, so I don't blame them. So even though I wasn't looking to be the assistant felt potentially that the role I was going to fall into. And this came up. I was looking at Surrey. I was going to be actually moving back to Yateley, which is obviously very, very close anyway, and applied, went for the interview with Chris. And I'll say to this day, the interview with Chris that we had, I was still in the US at the time, was one of the best interviews I've ever had. I didn't know him. And we sat here very much like this on Zoom chatting, and we got on very, very well. And some of the projects the club were about to, look at and work towards, I had actually worked on at Llanwern. So I had a very good working knowledge of the stuff Worplesdon were looking to do. So that worked very well for me. I think Chris thought the same. We ended the call with, tomorrow, can you meet the board, please, on Zoom? I'm like, yeah, okay, great. Yeah. I'm working, but it's a Monday. I can make that work. So from the bridal suite at our second clubhouse, the James River Clubhouse, the Country Club of Virginia, I actually met the board. I sat in there, very strange kind of background, but met the chairman, finance director, and then the head of the FRG group, member of the RNA actually, and on the wine committee, Neil Booker. And we sat there, we were probably on the call for an hour and a half, close to 2 hours. They kind of grilled me one side, but then I almost grilled them back because I had a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I always go away from interviews thinking that went terribly. I'm not a very, overly confident person in myself sometimes, very critical. And went away, I thought, that was awful. And I literally walked out the bridal suite, down the hall, back into the office, put my laptop down, and Chris texted me to say, apparently that went phenomenal. Like, well done. If you had, like, take some days to think about it, but if you want the job's yours. So
Fantastic.
yeah, pretty much accepted on the spot, and yeah.
Brilliant. And that was April last year?
Yes, I left the US on the 27th of March and pretty much started here, I think the day after Mother's Day, Mother and Sunday, and then started the day after on the Tuesday. It was like the 2nd of April. So, yeah, coming up to a year now.
Yeah, brilliant. And the experiences you had in America and before, what have you brought to Worplesdon, and what are you trying to put into place, would you say, with Chris? Or what is the role, or what's the...
I think it's been an interesting kind of move for me and for the club. The club never really had an assistant secretary role. They had the role, but it wasn't the true assistant secretary role. Mm-hmm. And then you had a great kind of golf operations manager in Jack Clegg, who was almost the number 2, if that makes sense. But him leaving and the assistant secretary leaving almost created this new role. And we've kind of been learning as we've gone on, Chris and I. And we've been trying to learn from, like Adam and Tristan at Sunningdale, the way they work together as a 1 and 2, to really kind of develop how we work here. And, Chris has been here, 14 years. He knows the business inside out. He knows all the members. And it's trying to push forward, and obviously him give me some, me like push back on him a little bit too, and really push Worplesdon, where we want to go. We're very fortunate that we're, heavily reinvesting in the club. That's what the members kind of want. We've undergone some huge projects, irrigation right now on the golf course. We've just started our patio project. We're looking ahead for more clubhouse projects. Again, keeping that traditional element, but moving into the 21st century with families. There's lots going on. So the role is ever developing. I like to be involved in everything, so I like to take everything on. I don't know if Chris likes that sometimes. He's got to slap me back down and get me, back into my kind of assistant head space role. But yeah, I mean, it's been great. We're, like I said, heavily involved in sustainability right now, doing a lot of great work on that, working towards geo certification. But that's not all we want to do. We want to become a sustainable business for the future. That's just a nice kind of stamp as on the way up. We're looking at, again, another course strategy, 5-year strategy of where we want to go on the course. We're very fortunate to have a fantastic golf course. We just won, England and GB&I Golf Course of the Year awards, which was, fantastic. Great for us. Puts us on the map, but obviously don't rest on our laurels. What have we done good? What can we make better? How can we push this ever forward? So, yeah. And
I think I'm right in saying that you're seeing a few more Americans finding Worplesdon. Would you say that right?
I would, especially I've been here close to a year now, but over that summer period, a lot more. And that's just what the shop are telling me. James was the assistant here to Jack, and obviously he's stepped in that golf ops manager role, and he kind of said, we never see this amount of Americans come into play here. So definitely starting to see it.
I think through the pandemic, it gave people a lot of time to research. And I think everybody, we want to do Scotland, we want to do Ireland, but if we've done those, where else? And then you look at London and you see the great golf courses around London, and then if you have done the research, the 3 Ws have got to be on that list. But it's amazing that I played in a Mashi event with 2 really good players, and they were looking for somewhere to come for a stag weekend. And I said, well, but it's like, where would you go? And I said, kind of price points and wherever. Like, don't mind what we're paying for the golf course. We just, we want to have a good time, and then we'll find our digs or whatever. I said, well, you won't go far wrong if you do the 3 Ws. It was like, what's that? Didn't have a clue. And, they're good players just outside of Birmingham. And we told them, and he was like, done. Let's do that. That's fantastic. Amazing. It's
interesting you say it, because even me coming back, I played a lot of golf in this area growing up. I didn't really play. I played Woking. I didn't really know a lot about 3 Ws until I was interviewing. When you kind of, you do a bit of research, and you look in. But we're blessed, this part of the world. There's so many great golf courses in this part of the world.
Because the one that I have really found is the Americans is St George's Hill. They seem to have really honed in on that, and they're doing a lot of work as well, which is great. But I think, and Swinley Forest, that's seen. I was talking to George Ritchie the other day, and he's seeing more Americans coming to this part of the world and really enjoying Swinley Forest, then why wouldn't you? It's a great golf course, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think they all talk as well, and we're all obviously close as managers. So, if they go to St. George's Hill, they suggest somewhere close. Yeah. It could be us. We'd suggest Swinley or the Berkshire or someone else. So I think word of mouth is starting to grow. And I think even this year now, looking ahead to summer 2025, I think we'll, again, see it grow a little bit more.
Grow a bit as well. And that obviously helps the club.
Massively.
Helps the shop.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, which is great. Yeah. So probably on a wider scale, what would you say is some of the challenges for club managers in today's world, and where do you think golf will change in club management in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think right now, obviously, cost of living, inflation through the roof. Maybe not going to affect our members too much, but I think the industry as a whole is going to affect members. It's going to affect staff. I think the budget, national insurance, how that's going to change now come kind of April, going to have a huge impact on us, especially kind of wages and that kind of side. It is going to be difficult. It is it is a tough time. I think most clubs rode the crest of the wave through COVID and the uptake in golf. Maybe we're kind of hitting that tipping point. And maybe, with the way finances and everything are going in the UK, we're going to start to see the trend, buck and go the other way again. I hope not. I hope, golf's very much, on the ascendancy still and here to stay. But I worry sometimes for the smaller to medium-sized clubs who maybe didn't, reinvest and do everything they could during those good times, coming up. It's going to be difficult. It is. Yeah. It's going to be a difficult time for golf. Yeah.
If you won the golf lottery, here's a lump of cash.
Yeah.
What would you do with it? What aspirationally? We're asking everybody this question to kind of. Grapes and Greens is, yes, it's about the connection of wine and golf, but it's more around sitting on the terrace after 18 holes, and the conversation, as many times out there, is like, well, where have you played? Where do you want to go? Yeah. And then comes like, oh yeah, we've got this place, and where do you think you would spend your money, and what do you aspire to try and do?
I think for me, even now, I'd love to go and play the top 100 courses in the world.
Yeah.
I'd love to play every Open Championship venue if I could. I still love golf. I don't play as much as I'd like to, but I'd love to go and play as many of those top courses I could. Travel the world a little bit to play.
Yeah.
There's some fantastic places you've probably never heard of that through word of mouth you kind of go to. So yeah, I think I'd love to go and play as many as I could around the world. I've never really been Far East. I've never even been to Dubai, Australia, New Zealand, so I'd love to go and play golf in that part of the world. Get some new clubs, long overdue. And
obviously PXG, if
it could be,
just down the road,
So yeah, that too, and I'm a big Peter Millar FootJoy fan, so I head to toe, kit it out.
Sustainability reflow is pretty cool as well.
There you go.
Pretty cool.
So I just go and play as much golf as I could, I think, if I won the lottery.
And it's probably not the right question really to ask someone of your age, but if you only had one game of golf left, where would you play it? Why would you play it? And who would you play it with?
It's an easy question for me, straight off. Augusta National. Why wouldn't you play Augusta?
Okay.
For me, growing up, watching the Masters on the TV was almost obviously winters in Wales, not particularly good. Yeah. You start to see that on the TV and how it's, it just, I know it lights a fire inside you to want to go and play golf. It did for me as a junior. I just love the whole...
Probably the hardest time for a greenkeeper.
Oh, 100%.
Because everybody sees that and then expects that, but he's still got frost in the ground.
100%. But just to experience that once, I haven't even been there to kind of walk around. So even to walk around, I'd be happy.
Okay.
To play it would be something else. And I think ideal, 4-ball, grandfather, without a doubt. He's the one who kind of taught me golf up to a certain age.
Okay.
I wouldn't be playing golf if it wasn't for him. I wouldn't be here pretty much without him. So... 100%. Tiger Woods, obviously growing up, I'm at that age where he's my idol growing up. He'd have to be in the 4-ball. Who else would I have in my 4-ball?
Got one left.
I'd have to go like close friend, my best friend, say Sam or someone, just someone I grew up with who we could enjoy that moment with. It's not all focused on golf. It's, we're here for the moment together. So
No, it's great, fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Julian, I'm going to try some of this wine. It's been great to talk to you. So a fascinating insight from a young manager who's done so much in his time already. And I think that you're going to go far. And I think you'll be a great asset to Worplesdon, but where you go after that, I think also, you'll do a great job. So cheers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching another episode of Grapes and Greens. If you'd like to watch further editions, please click here. If you'd like to subscribe, please click here. Thank you.